And start off with a Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Get a motion for approval of the minutes from October.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, before we get to the announcements, I'd like to congratulate Tom Blomstrom. Tom just took over the chair of the Mid-Atlantic Regional Council of the NRPA, which is the National Recreation and Park Association. Tom, that's a great honor, a great responsibility. Congratulations to you and to the township, okay, because it gives us some notoriety as well throughout the nation. So thank you.
Thank you.
And with that, announcements?
Thank you. Announcements. Our next Board of Commissioner meetings are Monday, November 23rd at 7 p.m. On that agenda will be the award of bid for the park signs and also the award of bid for the professional service for our youth apparel for the Radnor Youth Basketball Program. And then the next meeting after that is December 7th, and that's also at 7 p.m., and there will be the announcement of the Holiday at the Willows. Our next Parks and Recreation Board meeting is Thursday, December 10th, here at the Radnor Township Building at 7:30 p.m. That concludes my announcements.
Reports, activity reports?
Activity reports. Very happy to announce that our fall recreation programs are going very well. I'll highlight a few. The Romp at the Rack, 5-star preschool sports, toddler tiempo, play ball, World Cup Junior Soccer, tennis lessons, squash lessons. Our Radnor Youth Basketball League registration's doing fantastic. As of 2 days ago, and Leah's going to correct me of where we are today probably, we were at 992, which is fantastic and ahead of schedule. After-school flag football went wonderful, and a lot of credit to our instructor who did a great job given all the horrible weather of trying to keep the kids exercising and, hey, it's only drizzling, let's see if we can get them outside. And I think the parents really appreciated the efforts there because we've gotten some positive feedback. Harry Potter program, total body conditioning, birding, pickup basketball, just to name a few that have gone real well. We had a couple that were canceled due to lack of participants. Yoga, Healthy Happy Kids Day, which was held on an in-service day, and Get Active in the Kids Zone were all canceled due to lack of participation. My thanks to Leah for her diligent efforts in working and scheduling the ball fields throughout the fall. We'll be moving into spring here shortly after the winter brochure gets done. Our Park and Rec Department, I just mentioned about the registration for basketball. Thanks to Bob Nicholas for his efforts from India, which is where he happens to be at the moment. He is still sending emails and directions on where we are with different things. So he is just so committed, and we appreciate his efforts.
So he's communicated from India?
Yes, he is.
Holy cow.
Yeah, he is a dedicated soldier, no doubt about it. For excursions, our New York City trip on Saturday, December 5th is currently sold out, so happy day. Lots of folks have been enjoying the high school tennis play, and we'll see where the weather goes on when we turn the lights off there, usually right around December 1st. Our picnic shelters had a great year. Fenimore Woods had 59 rentals and approximately 4,425 people attending. Beau Connor Park, Willows, Clemacrone, and Odoricio had 60 rentals with approximately 4,000 people attending. My thanks to the parks crew for their efforts in keeping the parks clean and looking good during the busy picnic season. Our Park and Rec EAC annual Sarah McCarrick cleanup at Skunk Hollow was slated for October 18th. It was canceled due to weather conditions. It was one of those horrific weekends where it rained about Wednesday through mid-Sunday. And it is canceled. We're not going to reschedule. We spoke to them, and we are just going to push that and make next year's effort even better. The 32nd annual Penn Medicine at Radnor Run on October 25th was a great success. We had, this is preliminary numbers. I'm going to get more finalized numbers, but 779 participants enjoying a wonderful day. The weather was just beautiful. We grossed more than $75,000 for the American Lung Association. My thanks to the many volunteers, our police department, Public Works, and Radnor Fire Ambulance for all of their help. Special thanks to our sponsors, in particular Penn Medicine at Radnor, Brandywine Realty Trust, the Radnor Hotel, and of course the support of Radnor Township. Thanks to the Board of Commissioners and this board for our commitment to that event. For projects, the Fall Harvest Fest was held by the Friends of the Willows Cottage on October 25th. They had a great event. They had approximately 600 people attend, and another positive event for the restoration efforts over at the Willows Cottage. The Odorissio Park steps to the ball field have been completed, Mr. Korick, and we'll look forward to making sure you get over there to check them out. They look super. My thanks to Bill Hagan for his efforts with the project. I'm happy to report that I received notification from DCNR that we did receive the $100,000 for the Cowan Park grant project. There will be a $50,000 Radnor Township match. We're in the process of receiving and exchanging paperwork. It takes a bit of time. We're looking forward to doing that project in 2010. One of the things that also has simultaneously happened, it's different. When I say different, it's not related to this. The Radnor Historical Society and some concerned citizens were able to get a historical marker to note the Wayne Natatorium that is going to go on the corner of Willow Avenue and Radnor Street Road, and right across from the park, right outside the parking lot there. One thing they talked about was putting some educational signage perhaps on the side of the comfort station area. And I was able to explain to them that, you know, it looked as though we were getting this grant, and it might work out with perfect timing that if they do their fundraising appropriately to make the sign and all those kind of things, that we can easily coordinate it to have it, you know, be placed on the side of the building when we do that next year. So that was very positive as well. John Fisher, Bob Thomas, and I met with PennDOT. It went very well to open up the dialogue and clarify some issues regarding the extension of the Radnor Trail to Ithan Village, specifically issues involving the right-of-way. Further review and comments are expected from PennDOT in forthcoming months. Thanks to the Friends of Radnor Trails group who has agreed to pay Bob Thomas for any expenses regarding his preliminary discussions with the property groups. We also did meet with Radnor School District official to discuss the concept plan in Martha Brown's Woods and an easement and going through there. So we're slowly taking steps there to see about bringing that project to fruition. My thanks to Chris Regan, Troop 284, who performed a park cleanup of invasives and trash at the West Wayne Preserve on Saturday, October 3rd. The next we will get to a little later. Talked about the park signs. The resurfacing and repaving of the basketball courts, in the event you haven't seen them, Beau Connor Park is completed and looks fantastic. Clem McCrone Park is completed and looks fantastic. Odorissio, we have been fighting the weather. With the tall trees around it, it needs more sunlight. With the rain and the cold weather or cooler weather, it's been difficult to get it to cure properly. We may, it looks like be in a position where we have to just do it early spring, which I'm happy that we got the two done. We were able to get done this year, especially given budget constraints. But they already have seen kids in the community out playing on them and receive some positive feedback. So that's been a real plus. And I want to thank Shannon Clear, who donated a bike rack for the park system. And that concludes my report.
Tom, a couple of questions. The basketball registration, when does that end?
It's in a late fee. It's late right now, but December 2nd for hoops.
December 2nd for hoops, a late fee gets instituted, and for youth basketball, we obviously try and accommodate as many residents as we can. If there's anyone who's still interested, they should get registered immediately. They can call our department, or they can go to our website.
Okay. Are there cutoffs at certain ages? Do we only take X amount of kids?
As you recall, I imagine, it depends on, in some cases, they're hoping a few more kids come in, so it balances the teams, so we can have 10 teams with 10 kids on a team, so we're at 96. That'd be great. In some cases, you know, they are looking for those extra. In some cases, they do sit there and go, well, we're at 100. We really don't want to take any more unless we're stuck, at which point then they try and maybe put an 11th on a team here and there.
Okay. The other question I had was just clarification from my mind. Fenimore Woods had 59 rentals with about 4,400 people there. And was it a combination of Bocana, Willows, Clemacrone, and Odoricio that had 60?
That is correct. It's a combination of the other ones.
Okay.
The other ones aren't, you know, as facility
Picnic-friendly,
picnic
sure.
equipped because of
Yeah.
the overhang. And a lot of folks, you know, use that as security when planning birthday party or what have you.
Okay. What would you think is our maximum number of times we could rent that facility out?
Fenimore?
Yeah.
80.
Okay.
You know, it would, it's a very nice facility. The improvements to the tot lot area certainly has been well received with parents who have birthdays down there with younger ones. So, but I would say 80.
Okay. Okay, good. Any other questions for Tom on the activities report? Okay, Shade Tree Commission, any reports from them?
No report this month.
Okay. School board report? None there. Any other committee reports? EAC? No report. Okay, we're going to switch things around just a little bit. We're going to go new business first. Jim Riley has a presentation from the Radnor Wayne Little League. Jim, if you would be kind enough to step up to the podium.
Hi, my name's Jim Riley. I'm the current president of Radnor Wayne Little League. And I'm here today to offer a possibility to raise money for both the township and for Radnor Wayne Little League, a nonprofit youth organization in the township. This idea would be sponsorship signs for the outfield fences at the two Yankee Little League fields right outside here at Charlie Park Field and also Art McGraw Field. Other Little Leagues do this. We're hoping to do it here as well. And we've checked into Newtown Edgemont and also the supplier of the signs for them. They also do Berwyn Paoli. Jim Keneally and Gary Rasmill's been in contact with the township regarding this. And the signs that they use are 32 inches by 48 inches. They would go up just for the season, which was roughly mid-March, and they would be down by the end of August. The signs are 10 millimeter thick corrugated plastic. After they're made once, then they could be reused, and they'd be stored and could be reused again. Radnor Wayne Little League's goal is to charge $500 a sign with 10 signs a field at a cost of about $100 a sign. Radnor Wayne Little League would then pay a fee to the township at $2,000 per field, times two fields, which would be a total of $4,000. And we would do that if we can sell enough to at least break even. If we don't want to go into this and lose money.
Sure.
Sorry. Yeah, so the sign's 32-inch by 48-inch. It's made by a local company. Typical, they've used white background for best viewing, and it's easier to read from a distance. They used to do just 3 colors. Now they can do a full 4-color digital color printing. Designs may also include a logo or other graphics that they would supply. Donors and sponsors of teams at any level of a Little League program should be motivated, this is, if you're getting the sponsors, should be motivated with a single objective of making a worthwhile community contribution. Personal and business gain should have little part in their thinking. Their sole aim should be to assist the youth and help make their community a better place to live. Many leagues use outfield fences, signs to recognize sponsors, provided the signs are permitted by local laws and ordinances. The names of the business must not imply the sale of use of alcohol or tobacco or any product or activity not in keeping with Little League's good name. For example, Joe's Grocery Store is acceptable, even if Joe's Grocery Store sells tobacco products. However, Joe's Discount Cigarette Outlet would not be acceptable. Also, the name of the business must not offend community standards. This is a decision of the local Little League board or the community directors. The sponsorship does not give the sponsor any right in the operation or the outfitting of any particular team or the league itself. And if you have any questions, please ask.
Okay, Jim, if I'm hearing this right, then you're going to be charging $500 per sign. There'll be a cost of $100 for the sign to be actually manufactured,
Right.
which will net out $400. So in effect, what you're doing is splitting the revenues with the township.
Splitting if I only do 10. We're doing 10 a field, and there's 2 fields.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I would just
Yeah.
a thought, rather than promising the township $2,000 and you only sell 8 signs, okay, why don't you do a 50-50 revenue split
All the way through.
all the way through? Okay, this assures you if you don't maximize the sales, you're not gonna get hurt.
I think what we'll do is, the intent as far as, it's something that, as far as the revenue side has already been looked at administratively and placed in the budget as far as revenue. And having discussed it with Jim, and thank him for his time and Jim Canelio's, obviously, we would not want Little League to lose any money. So if it's something that we would need to readjust, we would. But I think as a model moving forward, I think that's the perfect model that we would strive for.
Okay, that's fine.
Jim, has this been through the design and review board? Do you going to have to do that with each of the signs, or?
This is the first meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. In the design review board, I don't know, because this is the first meeting. So that's the first question
Yeah.
about that.
Following tonight, I plan on giving a copy of the proposal to Matt Bauman, and I think that provided the guidelines are followed with and don't have any issue regarding code, that's something he can certainly brief the design review board on, but I think it might be an arduous task to have Little League bring the same level of detail to design review in that case, because it is not a permanent sign.
Right.
It's a sign that's just a seasonal sign to generate some revenue through some advertising.
Well, Tom, let me ask you this then, in the same thought process. The board is good, the Radnor Wayne board, which is a very astute body, by the way, I mean, incredibly strong people on that board, will review the signs and determine whether or not they match Radnor guidelines, Radnor Wayne and Little League guidelines. Do we have any oversight on that, or should we have any oversight?
Yes, we do. The township will have last judgment on if there's something that the township doesn't want placed there, then it will not go on the township property.
Okay.
Jim, has there been any interest yet from companies or sponsors for these signs as of yet?
Haven't mentioned it to anyone.
Okay.
There have been people in the past who have asked about it.
Okay.
So where two fields may be ambitious for year one, I think that the possibility of having one field work out for year one, might be certainly attainable.
Jim, would the agreement be that the placement of the sign for the sponsor is for a year? For that
Yes.
fee?
Yes.
And a
Just for,
renewable,
yeah, for the following season.
same amount?
Yeah, same amount. Some townships said that the following year they would do it at a lesser amount, just say the
Right.
$400.
You don't have to make the sign
Right,
again, so
Right.
maybe a little less?
yeah.
Is the revenue sharing practice the same in other townships that you're proposing?
I
Do you-
don't know. The person that I talked to
I guess my,
at Newtown Edgemont, on their outfield fence, they have it almost like they're all touching.
Right.
They have like
Yeah.
30 signs across. And they keep all that money, but then the township
right, I
cuts
guess
the
my,
fields, does
I
all
guess
the
where
stuff.
I'm really going with this is, I mean, is this a goodwill gesture on your part to do the revenue sharing with the proceeds of the sign?
Well, yeah, I mean, the fields, we don't own the fields.
Right, I understand that.
Yeah, so, and I think the other towns that do that, I think they lease
Okay.
the fields for like $1 for 20 years. So
Right.
the town still owns the fields. So here, in this case, Radnor owns the fields.
Right.
They'd have to allow us to do
Okay.
it.
I think the concept is, it varies based on the community on who owns the fields and who doesn't, whether or not those groups pay a substantial fee or not to lease fields, which happens in some cases. And in this particular case, we looked at it as a win-win. Since we do own them, we maintain the fields. It's an opportunity for us to do something positive in partnership with the lake.
Is it a fair question to ask, with the budgetary discussions going on, that there have been any discussions about charging any of the organizational groups fees for using the fields, and this would potentially be an offset of that?
We
or
are-
in lieu of?
We are, next year as well, looking to institute a usage policy, a usage fee for the youth groups. I have spoken to the leadership of every youth group that uses the exterior ball fields in the community. They understand and have appreciated Radnor's support over the years, but also understand the budget crisis that exists. And we have proposed a flat fee where each organization will pay $10 per player that participates on the fields in a given year. And that will generate some income that will offset maintenance expenses, and our
Right.
youth
I got you.
groups are giving back there. So this was an alternative to that,
I got you.
where these folks can generate
Now,
some
would that,
revenue.
assuming this would get passed and through, would that fee be included or offset, or,
Two separate things.
okay. Are the fees going to this board at all for recommendation or discussion
The fees
within the
have,
budget?
the fees have already been placed in the budget.
Okay.
It's my understanding.
Jim, in your discussions with other townships who have done this before, are there any negatives that they've come across?
I know the townships that have a lot of signs and snack bars, and they generate a lot of revenue, but they also take care of all the fields, so they're doing it both ways. They gotta bring it in to pay the guys to work on the
Sure.
fields. Where, in our case, if we can work with the township, which we're trying to do, I think it'd be a little bit easier. I know at Pottstown, I think the person that used to run the snack bar left, and it was like a big, gap after that person left. So I think just from this, it's a little bit easier than, say, running a snack bar. If the signs, if it works out fine, if you don't get it, you don't get it, and you can put the signs away.
Mhm. Thank you. Any other questions?
I could see just an issue with vandalism or destruction from weather or something like that. Who's responsible for the sign at that point?
Yeah.
Is there insurance on there or something, or?
I don't know, when I started to look into this, I know they used to have like kind of these stiffer metal signs, and then a lot of people are selling vinyl ones that are thin and easily ripped.
Right.
The one that supplies, yeah, yeah, and these other ones that supply the fields at Nail and Berwyn Paoli, it's a thicker plastic sign, still grommets in the corner, it ties up, but it's more durable.
Right.
So, yeah, that's what we're going for.
They have a few wind cutouts in them as well.
I don't know if they do for this, because it's just stiff.
Yeah, well, we could, could always look into that, but you may want to look into that, because a lot of times banners sitting on a fence will take out an awful lot of beating from the wind, but if there's little slits in them, allows the
Let it
wind to go
through.
through, it's a lot easier,
Yeah.
and it's easily done.
Okay.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion to pass this on to the board with recommendations or not? How do we feel about that?
Well, Tom, I'd move that the board approve the project with the stipulation that it is subject to design review approval.
I think we're one of the only townships that doesn't do it, to be honest with you.
Oh, I'm 100% for it. I think it's
Let me ask one question,
it's a
Jim.
great idea.
You guys do those books too, with all the kids' names and that kind of stuff? Are you
Mhm.
gonna put these advertisements in those books as well?
Well, I think the first companies that we go to will be the ones that advertise in the books to
Okay,
see if they want an outfield
so, okay,
fence.
that's how you do
Yeah, and then the books, is to debate it whether do we keep the books or not.
it. Right,
Just put everything kind of online.
Yeah.
okay.
Even though online is, like, we don't want it online that anybody can find out everybody's name and address.
Right.
That's kind of why we still use the books.
Right. Okay. Tom, how do you feel about design and review, as Joe just brought up?
It's fine. What I will do is, again, I'll get a copy to Matt Bauman, who works with Design Review Board, and I anticipate that he was going to, or we were going to make sure that Design Review was aware and was happy with the guidelines that we were doing prior to proceeding. So I think it's an excellent recommendation. And I think that, they can know what we're moving forward with.
Okay. Do we have a second on our motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Thank you,
Thanks.
Jim. Appreciate you.
Mr. Chairman, if I can, I just think it's important for the board to know. You see people that wear different hats. Jim was the chairman of the Give Green a Chance Committee, Give Grass, thank you, Give Grass a Chance Committee for the Radnor Middle School field, and also involving the turf field at the high school, and oversaw a committee of, it must have been, 20 people, and a very challenging task. And he did a remarkable job, and we now have 2 more beautiful community assets thanks to his efforts. So I'm not, a lot of times folks know that it goes in but don't realize who the community members are behind it. And Jim was the chairman of that group and a real leader.
Well said. And Jim, we do appreciate all your help. Thank you. Moving on to old business, West Wayne Preserve Stormwater presentation by the Delaware Riverkeeper.
We have Emma Gutzler from the Delaware Riverkeeper.
Good evening. Thank you for working me onto your agenda. So I'm here tonight to talk to you about the West Wayne Preserve, or formerly the Levin Tract. And 2 years ago, the Board of Commissioners, we had submitted a proposal to look at capturing some of the stormwater and improving that site. And 2 years ago, that was approved. And since then, we put together our design team, which was Meliora Environmental Design, who did a lot of the engineering work behind what you're going to see tonight, and Jonathan Alderson Landscape Architects right here in Wayne. And what we were charged to do is to develop a concept plan for the site that would, well, you'll see more as we get into it. But currently, this is the site that we're talking about. It's about 7 acres. It's currently wooded. It's bound by Conestoga, South Devon, the Radnor Trail, and West Wayne. So currently, water is entering into the site. It's coming across underneath from Conestoga. It comes into the site through an outfall pipe, which is pictured here. And you can see from this picture, there's a little bit of a bulbous scour that's occurred there from the concentrated flows that are coming out, and that's worsened over the years. From there, the water then flows throughout the site through a series of kind of eroded swales. This picture is looking towards Conestoga, so it kind of gives you the lay of the land. And after that, it goes underneath the Radnor Trail through a culvert, which is oftentimes clogged. And the last 2 years, we've dug it out twice for surveying purposes. So you can imagine that this does create a problem, and water is commonly backed up along the Radnor Trail, especially during higher and bigger storm events. It will also flood on to South Devon. So that's the existing flow of water through the site. The vegetation at the site, it is wooded, however, it's suboptimal, to say the least. If you think back a couple slides ago, you could see where we were looking at how the water flowed through the site. There was no understory trees. You had a bunch of tall trees, but nothing underneath, which is something that's ecologically important in a natural woodland. And here in the picture on the left, you can see there's a canopy gap that's allowed a lot of non-native invasive species to come in. And these are important because they can change the soil chemistry and they can crowd out native plants. And they essentially take over. We're all familiar with those. There's mile-a-minute here. There's Japanese knotweed, multiflora rose. There's all kinds of understory of these undesirable, and the ivy climbing up the trees and strangling the trees in time. And actually, some of the trees themselves fall into this category of vegetation that we tend not to like. There's a lot of Norway maples at the site, which again, they can change the chemistry of the soil, and they generate a lot of shade, not allowing any growth underneath of them. And there's a lot of dumping that's occurred at the site, past and current, unfortunately. The picture on the left is that same outfall where there's that bulbous scouring occurring due to the concentrated flows, shopping carts, there's concrete, and then on the eastern side, there's more recent dumping that's occurred of CDs and anything that you can think of. It's there. So, but all that said, this is a great amenity, you know. There's tons of people that use the Radnor Trail and all the work that you guys have done on that, and this is a high visibility site. And there's wildlife there. We've seen ducks and deer and salamanders and snakes, and there are some good plants, despite my kind of harping on the non-native invasives. There are some good plants there, and this kind of just hints at what we see as the potential, and you know, kind of gives us that guideline of, okay, this is what we want to restore. So based on the directives that we got from the Board of Commissioners 2 years ago, and then subsequent meetings we've had with Tom, as well as Dan Malloy, the township engineer, what we were working to do is capture the smaller storm events, those that occur on a more frequent basis, and control those on site to encourage infiltration and improve your water quality. And by doing that, we would alleviate that erosion and flooding, the stagnant water that we saw in the pictures. And the second step of that would be to restore a native plant community, so that we would get all the habitat value back for the native pollinators and birds. And of course, the human aspect, we can't forget about that. We wanted to really invite people into the space and let them reclaim it, since it's right there and so many people see it. So our first step, we examined the drainage of the site, and currently the site drains about 44 acres, and it's a mix of commercial as well as residential coming onto the site. And then based on our calculations, that again, we're looking at that half-inch rain event was what our goal was, and that's about 51,000 cubic feet of water. And with the design that I'm going to present to you, we are getting close to handling 83,000. So we're approaching being able to capture that 1-inch storm event, but not quite. But we exceeded what our original goal was for the site. I think you guys have a better copy of this. It's a little easier to see. But this is the stormwater plan that was developed mostly by Meliora, the engineer on this project. And the first thing that we're looking at changing is how water enters into the site. So instead of that one concentrated entrance, dividing that up into two. So altering it so there's one entrance here close to where it had been, or where it currently is, and then one further over on the eastern side. And instead of coming out in a pipe, we'd be looking at level spreaders, which would spread the water out, dissipate some of that concentrated flow, and therefore its erosive force. Then in the center area, we would be doing some minor grading to create shallow pools. By pools, the depths most of them are under a foot in depth. And that's just going to encourage infiltration, evapotranspiration in the site. And then coming down, we have 3 narrow areas where we'd be constricting water. So building small check dams that would allow the water to back up into that series of interconnected pools that I described. And then the last step would be modifying the existing inlet that carries the water underneath the Radnor Trail so that it can, be at an elevation that's not getting clogged and be able to efficiently transport those higher flows. These are just some pictures of examples that have been constructed at other places. On the left is the level spreaders that I was talking about, having 2 in the upper area that would just spread the water out instead of having a concentrated pipe outfall. And then we move through the site. This is an open site, so it's not quite how we envisioned, but it gives you an idea of the swales. And at those constriction points where I was talking about having the water back up into the site, these are check dams that have been built. These 2 were projects in Washington, D.C. area. And you can see they pretty much blend into the site. They serve their function as slowing down the water and backing it up into the system that's been designed. But, we want everything to blend in and enhance the landscape that's there. And in that same idea, the inlet underneath the Radnor Trail, we would try to conceal that, so that it's functional, but that it's not, there's the inlet and cause for vandalism. This is a diagram that illustrates how we anticipate water leaving the site after a storm event. We did do 2 test pits, infiltration pits, as part of this process. And so we see all the water with the way that it's been designed to handle the volume of 83,000 cubic feet, that within 3 days, pretty much all the water is going to be gone from the site. That it will have either infiltrated, evapotranspirated, or moved through the system a little after 48 hours. So that's kind of the stormwater aspect of it. And then the next section I want to talk about is the master plan, which complements the stormwater design, but at the same time works to restore that native plant community that we discussed and bring in that human aspect of it. So the current slide shows you this is the area that the stormwater function is going to be concentrated in what we just discussed. This is the bulk of where everything's happening, from the level spreaders to the pools in here where we'll have wetland communities, then coming down and then eventually exiting the site. So there'll be some open wetlands, there'll be wooded areas, and then stabilization plants on the slopes. There's a path that runs, you can see proposed throughout the site, that would connect Radnor Trail to Conestoga Avenue, as well as let people see the site. And what we're envisioning as far as entrance ramps, they would be built from fill that would be taken from when we are constructing those pools, because that's a pretty steep slope coming off that trail existing. This is an idea of what the paths could be used or could look like. They could be boardwalks over some of the more sensitive wetland areas. We could use some of the trees that we're looking at removing, the Norway maples, and using those for wood chips and trying to reuse as much material as we could. There are some neighbors that pretty much live right on the tract. So we wanted to be able to keep that vegetation around them to protect, give them their privacy and buffer. And we also proposed having a fence system around there that would keep them not only from encroaching on the township property, which has happened in the past, but also keep users of the path off of their property. The other area that, of course, we wanted to pay special attention to was along Conestoga and all the traffic that does use that road. So keeping our tree lines low in that area, using aesthetic trees, maybe your subcanopy, dogwoods, redbuds, viburnums, things that'll look pretty but not impede traffic flow. And again, thinking of reusing some of those Norway maples that we're looking to remove, using those as traffic barriers. Currently, there's large rocks keeping people off from driving onto the site, so using logs to do that. And we did have one parking space there, a pull-off space that could be used for maintenance or people enjoying it. The vegetation throughout, we would use all native species that would be aesthetically pleasing. We have lots of beautiful ones, the winter berries and river birches and viburnums, and there's a plethora of those. Then also we would have the understory as well. There could be native wildflowers in the open areas where sun is able to reach, and ferns. And then in the more wet areas, we would have our wetland vegetation that not only is aesthetic and complements the stormwater aspects, but also provides all the nectar and food for native pollinators and all the birds that use that site already, and would further their diversity and abundance. And some aspects as far as the human aspect, along Radnor Trail, we proposed and put in here having some type of treehouse structure, something fun that would allow people to look over from the site and see what's been done as far as the green infrastructure that would be put in, as well as, just seeing the nice native landscape and water, as well as educational signage. So that's pretty much the plan in a nutshell. And if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to answer those. The next steps of what we're looking at is the community input. So we presented to the Board of Commissioners last month at the October 12th meeting or somewhere in that time frame. And we also have scheduled a December 8th meeting, which will be a community meeting at the Radnor Library. I've been in contact with we sent letters to all the adjacent properties regarding the Board of Commissioners meeting. And from that, we had 6 people contact us. And all of them were very much in favor of that and are interested in volunteering their time and helping the project move forward. But a lot of the neighbors we still haven't talked to. So that'll be, of course, the first step that we need to complete. The next will be getting funding to move forward with this project. And in the last couple months, there have been several opportunities that have come along. So we are optimistic, and the design team is very enthusiastic about this project. So we're definitely keeping an eye open for funding that Radnor can pursue. Once that funding is in hand, we'll be looking at finishing the designs, finishing the engineering, and all the design specs that need to happen. Again, this was just the conceptual, so the way that the inlet structures and the existing manholes at the top need to be altered, all of that will be in that design phase. Then we'll need permits it'll be a joint permit from Army Corps of Engineers as well as Department of Environmental Protection. And then from there, we can start preparing the site and working on controlling the invasive species, removing the Norway maples, and then we can go forward with implementation of the plan. And that can be something that we had discussed a lot at the Board of Commissioners meeting, is phasing that. This is a project that could definitely be phased, whether it's design under one grant funding and then implementation, or even splitting some of the implementation into phases. So that's pretty much, again, the nutshell of what we have, and I'm interested in feedback that you guys have and any questions you might have that I can answer for you or get answered for you.
I think the most obvious is cost.
Cost,
That was
yes.
my question.
Thank you. I forgot to mention that at the Pursue funding. What we've put out as the current ballpark, which this phase has some wiggle room, of course, is about a $600,000 price tag. And what we had talked about at the Board of Commissioners meeting was that a lot of this, at least for now, we're looking completely at grant funding. And depending on the funding that's found and what kind of match, whether that would require a cash match from the township, whether the cost that the township has already put out for this phase of it could be counted as match. It depends on the grant, and as well as volunteer time. So that's where we are.
Sometimes you can get grants that can actually serve as the match for a grant as well.
Yeah, as long as they're if it's not federal, if you have a federal grant and a state grant, they can be used together, or foundation grants. So that's the next challenge, is trying to piece together the funding for that budget.
And that's for the whole project, as you sort of just presented right
Mhm.
there? Like tree
That
houses
includes
and
the
all?
treehouse and the
Okay.
signage and all the design and permitting. The permitting, we did have a wetland survey done. I know that the township had one done. I'm not sure when that was done, but it was in the past. Do you remember when the first wetland survey was done?
It was quite a few years back.
And so we did have that redone by a wetlands delineator, and that was resurveyed into our site map by Yerkes. So that has been updated, and he's ready to do a jurisdictional wetland determination if we need to do that for permitting. But that's kind of a wild card as that comes, no problem. But yes, that would include everything that was presented. And, you know, some of those things, you know, the treehouse could be an optional thing that, like, oh, okay, that's nice, but maybe we don't want to spend that money for doing that. That could be decided later on.
How long will this project take?
That's a good question. Controlling the invasives, I would recommend that to do that adequately, you're looking at a year, if not 2 years, of just making sure that you have that under control. And then we can amend the soil and then move in with, you know, because we don't want to plant our native plants in there and invest all the vegetation and then have it undertaken. So you're probably looking at a 2-year process.
So there was a picture on the presentation of a raised wooden type pathway. Was
A boardwalk? There you go.
Yeah, was that included in this project? Were you expecting to have some of that over the?
Yeah, if you
What is
look
theirs?
on the master plan, the landscaping plan, you'll see that some of the path is a slightly different color. And so we were projecting some of the boardwalks. Again, that's going to be a cost increase. I mean, that's included in that $600,000 number that I ballparked for you. But that could be something, the path could be changed to avoid those sensitive areas. But yes, that was something we foresaw.
Are features like that and the treehouse sort of negotiable points in terms of price, the cost of the overall project? Or, I mean,
Yes.
how do you, when you budget it, I mean, is that, you know, an integral part, or is it something that you could, you know?
That's
delete if
all
you need to?
aesthetics, you know, that's, the integral part is really the stormwater and the plants. Where the path lies, the path could be changed. You know, when we were looking at it, we wanted to keep it away from those neighbors as well as making it a looping path. And maybe we decide based on budget costs that, okay, we don't need a looping path. Maybe it'll go over the other side where there's less water and then just connect to Conestoga. Definitely.
This project is obviously worthwhile, okay, there's no two ways about it. My concern is twofold. First of all, dollars and cents. And second of all, timing in this economy that we're faced right now. I guess it's basically one. If this was a capital project that did not get done for another 2, 3, 4 years, what adverse effect would that have, if any?
Probably none.
Okay.
What if we didn't do anything at all? I mean, that's been sitting there for years.
Yeah.
What's the downside now, other than the invasive plants and the aesthetics of the site?
Well, you currently do have some of the flooding on South Devon and then the stagnant water along the trail, which anytime people see stagnant water, or, I mean, I face this a lot doing river restoration and wetland restoration of, oh, we're going to have standing water and mosquitoes. So, I mean, I hear that a lot, so I'm sure probably the township hears that regarding the water along the path. And it's just kind of a missed opportunity. So I would say that's your cost. That this is going to improve your water quality that's coming in by the filtering process, and then therefore improve Little Darby further down.
Somewhat part of the gateway coming in from that side of the township.
Can we put a big blue sign there too?
Probably could.
It's definitely a visible place, and that was
Oh, no
something that we had talked with Tom a lot about and when we were meeting with the township staff of, you know, some people only see green. You know, so it looks great now. Why are these people coming in and cutting down trees and making sure that the educational component happens and that there's signage along Conestoga making people aware of?
I think one thing that's important for the board to note is that with some of the grant opportunities that the Riverkeeper will be, you know, seeking out and going after for the project, the pots of money that have been established as far as grant money, yes, in today's economy, those pots are smaller pots of money, but they're still designated for certain criteria. And what I'm saying is, if there's a project of this environmental nature, and that's the pot of money that's going to go towards that, yes, we can go in and try and get design money to design it so we can move on to the next phase of it. If we don't, someone's going to reach into that pot, and it might be the next town over, it might be the next town 10 towns over, that gets that environmental money. It doesn't become some other type of use. So they're earmarked grant money specifically for these type of projects.
And right now, sorry to interrupt.
No, just to comment on that, Tom, I'm aware of that and fully cognizant, and I realize that's the pie we want to grab a piece of. But we just got a grant for Cowan Park, okay, for $100,000, of which we had $50,000 matching funds, okay? My concern here is obviously, as you all know, we have a number of capital projects ahead of us that we've been postponing for years and years and years, that some of them are very pressing in my mind, especially Fenimore, as we just brought up just now from the usage of the park. It's just a matter of allocating dollars. There will be a grant. I'm sure you'll go to do a great job and go get a grant. That'd be wonderful. But I'm sure there's going to be matching funds to that, too. The concern is how much of those matching funds and what are those matching funds going to come from? What are they going to be taken away from? And that's a concern of this board.
That would be the more underlying point. What does it take away and what does it push back further that's already been pushed back?
Absolutely.
And that was something that had come up at the Board of Commissioners meeting last month. And they had asked, had this come before you guys?
Yes,
And
and they also at that point in time asked us during that same meeting, they verbalized they would like us to put together a priority.
correct,
source.
exactly.
And-
That's where I was
By all means, we
going.
will put this on the agenda and then look at this as a priority
Okay,
and put it
great.
on our little chart.
Right.
If-
And there is a lot of funding out there right now as far as the green funds. I mean, the economy is tight, but, with the stimulus funding that's come through, PennVest funding, it's all going to green infrastructure. I mean, that's a buzzword, in sustainability. And this is exactly that, handling that smaller stormwater with storm frequency within an urban area. So there are a lot of opportunities currently that we'd like to jump onto and, maximize while they're there, because a couple years down the road, who knows?
Yeah.
That money is probably going to be going into something else that's lacking right now,
Mhm.
so.
If for some reason this project is delayed, will there be a need for any reevaluation of the plans and the studies that you've done so far? I guess my question is, would there be additional costs to sort of get the process restarted again?
I wouldn't foresee that, as long as, the design team was still intact. The main cost of restarting the project later down the road might just be, changes in cost in general, whether materials and stuff like that have gone up. I don't see there being, where we are now, it is a concept plan, and I think that can easily be taken up. And even the design phase, if we had money tomorrow, this could be pretty quickly shovel-ready, which is the other buzzword that we're hearing a lot of. There is some design work to be done, but it hasn't been done yet, which would make it easy to pick up in the future. But we could do it easily at this point and be ready to go, depending on what funding comes available. A lot of funding right now is for in-the-ground stuff. They don't want to do just the design. They
Right.
want to see the end product.
Right. Any other questions? Well, I want to thank you for coming before us and laying this out. This is a very, very worthwhile project.
Thank you.
I think it's going to be a tremendous asset for the township, and hopefully we can get it done in a relatively tight period of time. But I think what we have to do at this point in time is I'd like to set up a subcommittee for us to look at our priority capital list, and with this as one of the items on it as well. So I will put Bob and I on this and ask for 2 other volunteers to be on that subcommittee.
I'll volunteer.
Okay, great.
I mean,
Fenton, okay. Thank you. Therefore, we're moving on this right away for you.
Thank you. And if you have any questions when you guys are going through that, feel free to contact me at any time.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And the date of the event at the library is going to be Tuesday, December 8th at 6 p.m.?
Yes, and I think I'm going to actually have a start time at 6:15.
Okay. And just so you know, I did notify both the EAC and the Shade Tree Commission about tonight's meeting and presentation, as well as the presentation at the library.
Okay, great. Any other business? Do I have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Second?
second.
We are done.